All right, so you know how it is, right? It's 2025, life is busier than ever, and finding time to learn English, well, it feels almost impossible sometimes.
It really does.
But we're here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way.
No, not at all.
We've got some really cool hacks that can help you squeeze in some language learning no matter how jam-packed your schedule is.
Exactly. And I think the big thing that we want to get across today is that you don't need to like block off hours and hours,
Yeah.
to make progress. It's really about finding these little pockets of time that we all have and using them effectively.
Love that.
Mhm.
So first up, let's talk about micro-learning.
Okay.
We always hear that consistency is key, but
Yeah.
how do you actually do that when you're juggling a million things?
Well, I think the mistake a lot of people make is that they think of language learning like these big marathon study sessions,
Right.
where you have to sit down for like 2 hours at a time and cram.
Yeah.
But honestly, that's just not realistic for most people,
No.
especially not in 2025. So instead of aiming for these huge chunks of time, why not try shifting your mindset to think about shorter, more focused bursts of learning?
So like instead of 2 hours on Saturday morning,
Yeah.
it's like 10 minutes while you're, waiting for the bus.
Exactly. Even 10 minutes a day can make a huge difference.
It's like those high-intensity interval training workouts, but for your brain.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Short bursts of effort, but high impact over time.
I like that.
Okay, so how does this work in real life, though? Like, what are some examples of how we can actually implement this micro-learning strategy?
Well, think about your daily routine. Where are those little gaps in your day where you could squeeze in a little bit of English? Maybe it's while you're waiting for your coffee to brew or, during your commute
Yeah.
or even while you're cooking dinner. I don't know.
I've actually started listening to podcasts in English while I'm folding laundry.
Oh, that's great.
It's amazing how much you can absorb without even really trying.
Right. And that's the key. It's about making it a part of your life, not something separate that you have to carve out time for.
Okay, so we're maximizing those little pockets of time.
Yeah.
But what about the actual learning itself? How do we prevent ourselves from getting totally overwhelmed by, all the vocabulary and grammar rules and everything else
Yeah, that's a good question.
that comes with learning English?
I think this is where breaking things down into manageable chunks becomes really important.
Okay.
So instead of, trying to memorize an entire list of irregular verbs at once,
Which I've tried to do and failed.
yeah, it's overwhelming.
It's way too much.
Focus on just a few each day. Or instead of trying to read an entire novel, start with a short article or a chapter.
So it's all about being strategic and setting realistic goals.
Exactly.
Instead of, I'm going to be fluent by next year.
Yeah, which is kind of setting yourself up for failure almost.
Yeah, totally. It's like,
Yeah.
let me learn 10 new words this week.
Right.
Or let me have one 5-minute conversation in English today.
Exactly. And you can apply that to all areas of language learning, even speaking.
Okay.
Instead of feeling intimidated by the thought of having a full-on conversation, start with something small. Practice ordering your coffee in English.
Right.
Or describing your day to yourself in the mirror.
I love that because I think so often we set these huge goals
Yeah.
and then we get discouraged when we don't see results right away.
It's so true.
But if we can break things down and just focus on those little wins,
Yeah.
I think it can make a big difference in terms of staying motivated and actually making progress.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that by focusing on these smaller pieces, you're actually training your brain to learn more effectively.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when you space out your learning and focus on smaller chunks of information, you're giving your brain a chance to process and consolidate that information more deeply.
So it's almost like tricking your brain into learning better.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about micro-learning and breaking things down into manageable chunks.
Yeah.
But we're in 2025 and we can't ignore technology.
Oh, absolutely not.
Right, we've got apps, podcasts, virtual reality, AI-powered tutors. I mean, it's almost overwhelming.
It really is. It's like a whole language learning universe out there at our fingertips.
So how do we choose?
But I think that's the key, right? It's being strategic about how you use these tools.
Right. So where do we even begin? What are some of those must-have tools for busy learners in 2025?
Well, it really depends on you as a learner, and your goals, what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
Some people really like the structure, of apps like Duolingo or Babbel,
Yeah.
which are fantastic for kind of building that base level, grammar vocabulary.
Yeah, I love those apps. It's like having a little language tutor in your pocket.
It is.
You can just pull it out whenever you have a few minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about listening comprehension? I know a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, for sure. Podcasts are amazing for that.
Okay.
They really immerse you in real English, the way people actually speak.
Yeah.
And the best part is you can find podcasts on anything,
Yeah.
literally anything.
It doesn't matter what you're into. There's a podcast for you.
Yeah.
And, if you're just starting out, you can find podcasts that have transcripts
Okay.
or that are, spoken a little bit slower
Yeah.
and then gradually work your way up to more challenging stuff.
That's a good point, because I think a lot of times people get kind of stuck on the idea that they need to understand everything perfectly.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
from the beginning.
It's not about that. It's
Yeah.
about exposing yourself to the language and letting your brain kind of absorb those patterns over time.
Right.
It's like anything, the more you do it, the better you get.
And we can't forget about YouTube.
Oh my gosh, YouTube is amazing.
It's like a gold mine of language learning content.
Seriously, you can find everything on there.
Yeah.
Like grammar explanations,
Yeah.
authentic conversations, movie clips.
It's crazy. And you can pause, rewind, slow down the playback speed.
Exactly. It's the best.
It's amazing how much free stuff is out there.
I know.
You really don't need to spend a fortune to learn English these days. No, you don't.
But with all these options, how do we choose?
That's the question, isn't it?
Right, like it's almost too much.
Yeah.
Any advice for picking the right tools?
I think the best approach is to just experiment,
Okay.
See what works for you. Try out a few different apps, listen to a variety of podcasts, explore different YouTube channels.
Like shop around a little bit.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to mix things up.
Right.
You might find that you prefer using apps for vocabulary learning, but podcasts for listening comprehension.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like finding your personalized learning cocktail.
Yes, exactly.
That really works for you.
Yeah.
But even with the best technology,
Yeah.
we still have to put in the work,
And
right?
of course, technology is a tool,
Okay.
It can make things a lot easier, but it's not going to do the learning for you.
Right. So that brings us to another really important hack,
Okay.
which is finding ways to make English a part of your daily life.
Yes, I love this one.
Right. It's not just about studying. It's about making it a part of your environment, your routine. So how do we do that?
Well, one really simple but effective thing you can do is change the language settings on your devices to English.
Oh, that's smart.
So your phone, your computer, your social media accounts.
Yeah.
Think about how much time you spend scrolling through your phone every day.
Way too much, probably.
Right. Well, now all of that time becomes passive exposure to English.
It's like a little mini immersion experience.
Exactly.
Without even having to travel.
Right, in your own home.
I love that. What other ways can we kind of weave English into our daily routines?
Well, think about the things you already enjoy doing
Okay.
and see if you can find ways to do those things in English.
Okay.
So, if you love music, start listening to some English language artists. If you're a movie buff, watch movies and TV shows in English.
Even things like reading news articles or following, interesting people on social media.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All of that can help.
It's all about surrounding yourself with the language as much as possible.
Yeah, make it unavoidable.
Right, exactly.
But let's be real here.
Okay.
Speaking and listening, those are the toughest parts.
Oh, they are definitely the most challenging.
Especially if you don't have a lot of opportunities to practice with native speakers.
Yeah, it can be tough.
So how do we get over that hurdle when we're busy and, we can't just magically teleport ourselves to an English-speaking country?
Well, actually, there are a lot of really effective strategies for practicing speaking and listening, even if you only have a few minutes here and there.
Right.
And technology can be a big help here, too.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some of these tech-savvy solutions for boosting our speaking and listening?
One of my favorite tools is something we use every day. I bet our phones.
Oh, yeah.
Voice assistants.
Okay.
Siri, Alexa, whatever you use.
Yeah.
They're awesome for practicing speaking
Okay.
and getting that instant feedback on your pronunciation.
Right, because it's scary talking to a real person.
It can be, yeah, especially when you're first starting out.
Yeah.
But with a voice assistant, there's no judgment.
Like your own little private coach.
Yeah, exactly. You can ask it questions, have it tell you a joke, practice giving a presentation, all in English.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And then there are also language exchange apps,
Oh, yeah, those are fantastic.
right, where you can connect with native speakers.
Yeah, or even other learners from all over the world.
Right.
And just have conversations, and get feedback on your speaking.
It's a great way to kind of break out of your comfort zone a little bit.
It is. And you can often find people who are learning your native language.
Oh, that's cool.
So you can help each other out.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
Right. You get to practice your English. They get to practice whatever language they're learning.
Exactly. And, you don't have to commit to like hour-long conversations.
Right.
Even just a few minutes here and there can make a difference.
Right. So it can still fit into that busy schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we covered speaking, but what about listening?
Yeah, listening is so important.
Yeah, we talked about podcasts and YouTube, but are there any other tips for really improving our listening comprehension?
Hmm. One thing that can be really helpful is to focus on active listening.
What does that mean?
So instead of just kind of having something on in the background,
Right.
really try to pay attention to what you're hearing, the
Yeah,
words, the pronunciation, the overall meaning.
like be present with it.
Exactly. And you can even try like repeating phrases
Oh, that's a good idea.
or summarizing what you've heard.
Yeah.
Just to make sure you're understanding.
Right. So it's not just about hearing the sounds. It's about processing them.
Exactly. Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, so active listening. Got it.
And don't be afraid to start with easier content
Okay.
and gradually work your way up to more challenging stuff.
Yeah.
You can even listen to the same thing multiple times.
Oh, interesting.
The first time, maybe you're just focusing on getting the gist of it.
Okay.
The second time, you can try to pick out some new vocabulary words.
Right. So it's kind of like building upon each listen.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about so many different hacks and strategies,
We have.
but there's one more really crucial piece to this puzzle.
Okay, what's that?
Goals.
Oh, yes. Goals are so important.
Right. Without them, it's easy to kind of get lost.
You'll lose motivation. You won't know if you're making progress.
Yeah, and especially for busy people. It's
Yes,
got to be realistic.
absolutely. Your goals have to fit into your life.
Right. So instead of saying, I'm going to be fluent in English by next year, which can feel really daunting.
It is a huge goal.
Yeah, so instead of that, it's like, I'm going to learn 10 new words this week,
Yeah.
or I'm going to have a 5-minute conversation in English every day.
Those are great goals.
Right, much more manageable.
Yeah, and each time you achieve one of those smaller goals,
Right.
it gives you that little boost of motivation to keep going.
Right, it's like a little victory.
It is, and speaking of small victories, I think it's really important to celebrate your successes along the way,
Oh, absolutely.
no matter how small they may seem.
Yeah.
So if you successfully order your coffee in English,
Yeah.
or you understand a whole podcast episode without subtitles,
That's a big one.
take a moment to acknowledge that.
Yeah, give yourself a pat on the back.
Exactly, you deserve it.
So to sum it all up,
Yes,
even in the crazy busy world of 2025,
it's true.
it is possible to learn English,
Absolutely.
even if you feel like you have zero free time.
Yeah. It's all about finding those little pockets of time and using them effectively.
It's about leveraging technology,
Yes.
making English a part of your daily life,
Absolutely.
and setting those realistic goals that will keep you moving forward.
I love it.
Remember, guys, language learning, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
So true.
Don't get discouraged if you don't see results overnight.
Yeah, just keep practicing.
Just keep going, be consistent.
And celebrate those small wins.
Yes, celebrate those wins.
Have fun along the way.
That's the most important part. All right, until next time, keep diving deep into those topics that fascinate you.
Bye for now.